We are talking about the material selection or the material things in the interior or the architecture point of view. So, what difference do you see in the Dubai market or the international market and India? How is that differentiate?
I think generally speaking, even materials or otherwise, I can still say it's been several years since I left India, finished a part of my life, and then came back to India. I can still say that a lot of design thinking is very practicality driven.
For any project which you start, so what is your starting level?
Very, again, interesting question. I think we start off definitely with a lot of questions. Okay. And I can remember this particular client not so long ago. He said, "You want to ask too many questions." And I said, "Let's release it, and you'll have to wait till we can unravel all of what's happening."
Welcome to Design Stories. My name is Altaf, and today I'm talking to Sneha Satyan. So, Sneha is an architect who designed everywhere from Dubai to Thailand, worked with global consultancies, and then finally said, "Now I'm ready to build my own." Congratulations, Sneha. And Sneha graduated from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore, got 12 master's degree in Milan, worked across continents, and then founded the design studio. Now she's working on the hotel, restaurant, bar, cafe spaces, work under pressure with real chows, with real people, and real business tech. So it's all about Sneha, and let's begin. So, why you wanted to start this design studio? What is the motto behind this?
First of all, thank you for having me here. It's nice to sit down and have a nice industry related conversation. Let's put it that way. So why did I start Design Studio? It was actually, I think there's two parts to the story. One is when you get into the profession of design, you always envision doing something that's my own. So that I think was somewhere hidden underneath multiple layers of let's just get going. Okay. And I graduated here, went to Milan, did my post graduation there. Immediately ended up with a job in Dubai. I said, okay, great, it's Dubai. Everybody at one point in construction wants to go work in Dubai. So I was in Dubai for a few years, worked with some really wonderful and, globally renowned companies there. And once I reached a point of working in Dubai, I said, okay, what's next? And I was looking for what's the next challenge that I wanted to go, exploring where I could go next. Life took a turn professionally and otherwise, where I ended up back in Bangalore, where I started my journey pretty much from. And for my previous job that I was working for in Dubai, they were looking to set up a business in India. And I said, okay, I can go back, live in my hometown and head the business there. And that's how I came back. I was working for this company for a few years. And then I said, I'm anyway doing it for another company. Maybe it's time I start doing it for my own self, because I think that little wish suddenly started coming to light, which got hidden a few years ago. And I said, okay, let's put things together and let's start maybe learning from the experiences that I had and let's make things better. Because there's a lot that I could gather from my experiences studying and working in the West. And given the fact that we're in a developing country, so much of opportunity in our country, which we're all super proud of. I think it was all about taking what I had learned from my experiences, putting it in here and trying to define it in my own way. And hence, it came by as design story.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful journey. Since we are talking about the material selection or the material things in the interior or the architecture point of view, so what difference do you see in the Dubai market or the international market and in India? How that differentiate?
I think generally speaking, even materials or otherwise, I can still say it's been several years since I left India, finished a part of my life, and then came back to India. I can still say that a lot of design thinking is very practicality driven in this part of the world, as against in the Middle East, very much in the Middle East more than in the West, where I think aesthetics take an upper hand. It's all about making sure we have the most good looking material. It may be material, maybe a light feature, maybe anything. Let's have the most good looking feature because I want my home or my office or my restaurant or my hotel to look so and so. Show people, I'm not saying people are not aspirational or how things look, but they're like, yeah, but how am I going to clean it? That's the next thing.
Always the maintenance issue.
Exactly, the maintenance issue. And it also comes down to, do I really want to spend that much money on that? I'm not saying people in the Middle East don't care about how much money they're spending. They do care. But I think the way they strike their balance is a lot more different from how it is here.
When you select the material, will you select for the photogenic appearance or the durability of the thing, or it is only the client wish?
Very good question. And I felt that was going to come from what I said previously. It's a mix of everything, okay, to give you a very short answer. But now I'm going to give you an answer from what we do at Design Studio. So we are all about designing experiences. Sounds really heavy and fancy to say, but just to break it down in a more understandable version. We are mostly designing hospitality projects. It's hotels or restaurants or bars or cafes. For us, it's all about what experience the client, the guests or the customers are carrying with them. Materials play the biggest role. Sure, you might have clients argue to say it's the operational aspect, how we treat our guests. Yes, of course, that makes a difference. But if you've got an unpleasant ambience where you're treating your guests really well, they carry that back with them. Sure. Especially in public like spaces as for hospitality. It's that experience that either brings the same people back or it never brings them back. So we always design with that experience in mind to say the guests should have the best experience because your memory is a strong aspect of your life. You carry back good memories, you carry back bad memories. Obviously, we want to design for those good memories. Awesome. So when we design those experiences, it then can be broken down to what really works well functionally, what really works well in terms of pricing and budgets that the clients have, what really works well aesthetically, what really works well to take pictures. I think all that boils down to what's the experience we're looking to provide. Of course, all clients will say we want them to have the best experience. But that's easier said than done. What's best experience is what we define by our storytelling, and all our projects are very, very high in concept. There's always a story to say this is what the user is experiencing when he's sitting in an office space. What is he feeling like? He's spending most of his day sitting in the office. True. So that's going to give him that emotion to say, yeah, I'm going to go back. Because in this day and age, you can change jobs so easily. And you don't give it as much significance to say that ambience actually helps that person come back. Yeah. So we designed for those experiences, but to answer your question a little bit more specifically in terms of whether it's for pictures or otherwise, there was a period, I think about 6, 7, 8 years ago where we have a lot of clients come, especially F&B clients, some would come in and say, I want an Instagram wall. And we'd say, why do you want, I've really had these conversations, say, why do you want an Instagram wall? Why don't you want an Instagrammable venue? Why do you want your clients to just sit up against this wall, take a selfie? If I have a restaurant, I want my customers to sit everywhere and take pictures everywhere. So that's when we started pushing a little bit more on these experience-driven designs that we work on. So taking it a little bit, orienting it towards materials, I think materials are so versatile. Generally, the subject material is so versatile. Sure. It all depends, I think, on how you use those materials. It's almost like when you're cooking, you've got so many ingredients to play with. It's all about how you celebrate those ingredients. It's very, very similar. There's so much. If you're just looking at wood, how was in so many versatile ways you can use wood, whether you're using it for a bar top, you're using it for skirting, you're using it for counterforms, you're using it for seating, for tables, for ceiling. I mean, it's endless. It's all about how well thought you're using these materials. And ultimately, that thought is what delivers good design. And that good design is what makes it want to be that space where we take pictures. So we don't say, oh, you take picture here, so we put the most beautiful materials. That doesn't work really. I mean, I'm sure the design world has gone through that cycle, but I don't think that ever works. You've got to design for the overall experience.
Absolutely. And so whenever the customer comes in, they never talk about only one wall or only one feature.
Exactly.
They always talk about the complete restaurant.
Correct.
The experience, the ambience, and there's so many others.
Exactly.
So it is more about the experience rather than just the color combination or the color palette or any specific material or that kind of the feature wow or something.
Exactly.
So when you design anything, irrespective of house or any kind of a something, you really think about the climatical conditions also?
Yes,
Like,
we definitely do because I think I would reword it to say context for us when we create our concepts and our stories that we work on for our designs. Context plays a very important role. And I say these mostly to clients who are chain clients or who want to become chain clients, right? Uh, we don't it's really difficult to cookie cut concepts for us. I think it's the easiest thing to do is what another person would argue. But a McDonald's in India needs to look like a McDonald's in India, in my opinion. A McDonald's in New York cannot look like a McDonald's in India. Maybe it works for McDonald's, just take McDonald's as an example. But when we're working with clients and we're saying we're selling you these experiences, we have to make sure that they are tailor made to those contexts.
True.
So whether that context takes in the local architecture as its inspiration, whether it takes in climate as its inspiration, whether it takes in its user profile as its inspiration, all of these become like part of our case studies and our factors that determine what our story is going to be. So 100% climate is a very important aspect.
So in India, suppose now, if you see the Bangalore climate is different. If you go into the coastal area, the climate is different. Right? So again, based on those climatical conditions, also the material gets changed.
Yeah, material. Ideally, it should change.
Uh,
I think we're again trends and styles keep redefining themselves over a few years, right? I think we had that maybe about 15 years ago where anything that was in the West was just blindly coming here, whether it's relevant or not. I mean, look at all the glass facade buildings.
Yes.
Did we really need them in India? Highly questionable topic, but we'll keep that for another day. I think now we're in that time in age, which I'm really happy that we're in that time where designers are definitely questioning, and so are clients. I think either clients are happy to be a part of this dialogue, or they're letting designers make these decisions. Wherein let's not do it just because somebody is doing it. Let's do it because we want to do it for so and so and so reasons. And climate is a very practical aspect. So when I said earlier that design decisions are still very practical driven in India, I think climate is a very easy plug-in to that aspect, When you're designing or when you're choosing materials in Bangalore, when you're choosing materials in Mumbai, when you're choosing materials in Assam, whatever that may be, you definitely have to be respectful about what the clients are doing. Will your materials make that, again, going back to experience, will your materials deliver a good experience for the people living in that house? Will it, when it's super cold outside in Delhi, will it give them that warmth they want to live in? Or is it going to make them feel so cold that like, oh my God, I want to leave Delhi and do something else? Go on a holiday, sure, but you're going to want to come back. It's your home. And it's the same way for any project we design. It's very important. So when we do our studies, we always study or research. We always study to understand that it may be a place where we've never been to. We recently finished a restaurant in Thailand, in Phuket. Very tropical, obviously, the climate. But it's tropical, but it's not Goa tropical. So we still had to study and understand what are the local materials there, how do those materials perform. And it's a little bit more challenging when you don't necessarily know the performance of those materials locally, because it was our first go. But it took us a little longer than normally to understand what those materials were like, what were the most relevant materials. But we have to respect them and we have to integrate them into this experience that we're delivering. Otherwise, we're doing McDonald's, which I don't take pride in.
This is a very, very similar copy paste kind of.
Exactly. I mean, you can do them, as I said, but that's not what we're trying to deliver.
It's a beauty, a boutique thing,
Correct.
So it has to be their own essence, and then the kind of where you are building up that kind of a hotel or restaurant, that essence has to come.
Very true. Very true.
So if you are setting up any hotel in Kerala, that cannot be similar, very similar, which is we are setting up in the Bangalore or any other.
Exactly. I mean, to simply put, it'll just look out of place. But sure, we're not designing for looks, so I don't really want to say it that way. But the people who are in that space, it could be an office, it could be a school, it could be a home, anything. it almost feels like, look at all the wilderness outside. I'm sitting in a glass building. I want to go out there.
Yeah.
But we want to make the users say, I want to be in here because I'm having the same experience that's outside. So connecting what's outside. We, as architects, we always say we want to connect what's outside to inside. And that 100% has to come through materials. Otherwise, it's a broken chain.
True. So, how you generally, start your dialogue with your client for any project which you start? So, what is your starting dialogue like? How you extract those essence of the masala from this people?
Very again interesting question. I think we start off definitely with a lot of questions. Okay, and I can remember this particular client not so long ago. He said, "You want to ask too many questions," and I said, "There's a reason, and you'll have to wait till we can unravel all of what's happening." I think for us, it of course depends on what is the project we're designing because. If it's a user defined project, like if it's a restaurant or if it's a hotel, then the aspects that we want to understand from the client are a lot different when we're designing restaurants. Because when we're designing residential projects, it's a lot more personal. So we almost want to go down to the extent of meeting their family members, what are these people living in their home, because each person has their own opinion about I want my space to be so. So it becomes a little bit more personal there. So our questions get oriented that way. But when we're designing more public-facing projects, it then gets oriented towards what does this client want to build and sell, and what users is he or she looking to attract. What's the kind of people that are going to come there? Because now it's, especially in Bangalore, everybody wants to have a cafe. I don't know where this is going to go, but we've designed so many cafes in the last few years. Everybody wants to design a cafe, and everybody wants youngsters, everybody wants startups sit there with their laptops. So our questions get oriented that way. So are you looking to have these youngsters who are coming there, order a glass of matcha, maybe a croissant, and they sit there for 8 hours? Are you happy? Some clients are happy. Some clients are like, not really. I want that rotation to happen. So there's more people coming. There's more money I'm making. So we orient our questions depending on what particular search is.
So when you design a restaurant or any kind of cafe, basically, so as you said correctly, the audience or maybe the customers who are coming in, their age matters, their gender matters, the kind of behavioral pattern, everything matters there. So is that the
very much, because when we design interiors, it's also there's a lot of psychological aspect that we go into, like, not psychologists, but we go into that level of understanding because as much as simple as a certain color makes you feel a certain way, a certain color makes a certain person feel a certain way, which is, again, a disconnected chain if you don't take that into consideration. If you have certain elderly people coming to a certain place, then you want the vibe of that place to be in a certain way because they're comfortable in such a setting. As against maybe a college-going kid who comes there and they are wanting to have this experience. So which is what goes back to all of what we're trying to sell, which is experience. But of course, we always have those projects where there's kids coming, there's elderly people coming, there's all kinds of people coming. So then it becomes a little bit more different kind of a challenge that we address.
And we have seen, this white color trends are happening nowadays. It is there since long, but how do you see it? And what is your opinion about that? Is that really very classy, or people adopt it very easily, or how it is? And how difficult it is for Indian home specific?
Yeah, I think that's something that I would have touched upon. I personally think the whole white trend is like any other trend. There was a beige trend, which I think towards the end of it, this is maybe about again 9-10 years ago. Towards the end of it, we had clients come and say, we don't want beige. Apart from beige, give us anything else. So I think that was the point of saturation that it had reached. And before that, it was all about wood. Most Indian homes or people who wanted to sort of imbibe that richness into their spaces, wanted to have wood cladding, really dark timber going on everywhere. And again, that was a trend. And we, more often than not, whether it's homes or otherwise, we have more clients coming and saying, can we not have too much wood going on? Because I think generally globally the trend right now is about clean linear spaces, which is very concretely looking colors, neutral tones of grays, maybe a little lesser of beige, a lot of whites. Because the lighter the interior is, you again psychologically you feel like you're in a very bright space because it's reflecting a lot of daylight, it's reflecting a lot of artificial light. You're feeling like you're in a bright space, you're feeling like you're in a big space, and you're feeling like you're in a very clean space. So it sort of it goes back to the feeling and that expression and that emotion that you're feeling. Now coming to the second aspect of it, how really well can you maintain it? I think when it comes to homes, it becomes very personal. It depends on how that family operates and how their day to day lives are and how they manage. But each time we have a client that says, yeah, we want something that's super wide, we will, in that instance, let them know or highlight it to them that so and so material will perform in so and so way if you want it white. So if you want everything white and matte, it is going to catch a lot of dust. You like it or you don't like it, unless you have your windows closed all the time. So either you have to make sure you clean the surfaces, or if you're like, yeah, we can't clean them every single day, we change the texture, we make them glossy. So these are we change our material approach to things depending on how white they want the space.
And in fact, when the client is approaching to you and they are asking for some specific kind of a material or specific kind of color, so do you really, educate them, or you just go with their words? Yeah, Chatika, you want this? We will give. Without sounding really arrogant, we always educate them. I mean, I don't want to say we educate them. I don't want to use that word, but there's a reason why they're coming to us to design their space, right? And so it's our fundamental responsibility to give them the most feasible design solution. They may come to you and say, yeah, I want a room that's fully orange. Floor, wall, ceiling, I want it to be orange. We're like, great. But these are the things that you need to keep in. When you're in that space, you're going to have a headache or you're always going to be angry because these are emotions that you feel associated to these colors. You cannot run away from them, and they're not, like how do I put it? They're not really about storytelling, but at the end of the day, they're about how you will feel. So we will have to still inform the client instead of educating. I think I use the word inform the client. The decision ultimately lies for them as long as they're the decision makers in that process. But given the fact that they've come to us for a certain reason, we have to give them the best solution. So if we feel like having an all orange room is the opposite of what they should have there, 100% we're going to tell them that. True. And sometimes I'm sure you must have this kind of experience also. People comes with the Pinterest photographs or with the Instagram. Every day of my life. Every day of my life. So how do you deal with these kinds? When Pinterest was new, I really enjoyed that time because I didn't really know what that is and how that's working. And we were very much using it to our own way. But it's for everyone. It's like social media. Everyone can just, and I think now Instagram is the new thing. Everybody has a reel that they want to show. They want everything to look like this, which is okay. But we'll still take that and we find a way to align it to our questions that we ask in the beginning. Because I think it becomes a little bit more challenging when we're doing residential projects. And that's always been my personal challenge, let me actually say that. Because when we're doing residential projects, not only is it very personal to the family that's living in that space, but each family member has seen these many things on Pinterest and these many things in their friends' houses and Instagram reels and all of it, and they want all of it. Absolutely. So that's when we again sit down and we go back to informing the client and we say, this is great, this is great, this is great, this is great. But you're going to have a circus of all your friends' houses. Absolutely. Unless that's what you want, we can do it. We can deliver it for you. But that's probably not going to feel personal to you. So that's what happens, I think, as a bigger challenge in residential projects. In commercial projects, I think it's a little bit more easier, I would say, because they've got a brand to live by. Most companies or organizations as such, even if they're a standalone company, they've got an identity that they want to maintain. Okay. And they can't say, I saw this there, and there, so I want all of it here. Because then they've just done what the other brand has. Sometimes that is happening in the reception of the conference ceremony. Yeah. I have seen in the commercials. They look very similar.
And very much like a Pinterest.
No, it is, it is more, sometimes whenever we go and approach to the client, they say, we saw a very beautiful restaurant, I'm sorry, a reception in the Instagram, and we want this very similar kind of a design. So how you are going to put this lights over here, how the entire maybe design will happen for the reception.
Yeah.
So those kind of things are always concerned.
Very true. We get that as well.
Do you feel that because of that, somewhere your innovation or your capability of thinking something different kills, and sometimes you get frustrated.
You definitely feel like there's no design sense. Yeah, it feels like a loss. Definitely, it feels like a loss. It feels like there's no design sense, but I think that's in those situations is when we try harder to inform it. It's very, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everything that's on Pinterest is rubbish. Of course, they're beautiful, which is why the whole world is using it for inspiration. So do we. But I think design, fortunately, does not work so simply that you cut this from here, paste it here, and that does your job. There is still a thought that needs to be done. If you're going to have hospital, and you want your reception lobby to that hospital or your registration counter, whatever you want to call it. You want that to be all about yellows and oranges and reds and greens. I'm not saying it's not, you can't do it. But I'm saying it's a hospital. You want your patients that are arriving, the first thing you don't want to give them a shock. Let's make sure they're feeling already a little better because they have entered the hospital.
That is why the hospital towels are always white.
Exactly, they're always white. So you cannot have a stark difference between your reception and the rest of the areas or the consultation rooms or wards in hospital. So it's the same way. You can take things from Pinterest, but what from that is really relevant for you as a client is where we come in.
That could be a kind of a reference point.
Exactly.
You cannot copy paste it.
You copy paste, but it's not giving you what you want. You feel like, oh, I got this exactly as it was on Pinterest, but it's not going to give you that. Whether you like it or not, because you're trying to create a certain experience and that vibe and that atmosphere. You cannot copy that from a picture.
Absolutely. So it is not only about the atmosphere. It is all about the personal interest again.
Correct.
The climatical condition again. We discuss about those. Then the size of that room, the kind of ventilation or the natural air and those kind of. So a lot of things matter.
Correct.
To design something about or maybe talk about the one particular block.
Very true. Very true. It's all the aspects put together. And even if you remove one of those aspects, at one point when you're in that space, you feel something is not connecting each other. It's very important we all the aspects you listed. Very important we understand the users of this space. Very important we understand the client, we understand the context. Sometimes even the longevity, because sometimes we also design for temporary, like a client wants to maybe invest X amount of money, wants to set up this particular cafe or a restaurant, and because he's looking to operate this for the next 10 years, and then he wants to rotate that money into something else, wants to get clients like that. He doesn't want to spend too much money, get this really expensive marble, because marble is going to stand for 100 years. He doesn't want to do that. So we also modify based on what the time frame or the lifespan of the project we anticipate. So yeah, it's important.
So when you design any particular project, so you design for this green concept, or when you suggest only those kind of material when actually client demands or the situation demands?
I think innately as architects and designers, we have the climatic aspect in our DNA by this point. So already when we start working on our designs, as I said, because climatic study is part of our research anyway. So when we start building our design, we start with our story, as I said. We start building our concept, and we deliver something called a pre-concept, which comes before the main concept. So already when we do our pre-concept, we would have taken into consideration the sustainable or green building aspect. What can we do as designers to contribute to society, to contribute to the world in which way that's possible, whether or not the client wants it. But there are clients that really don't care for it, they don't bother about it. But that doesn't take away, I think, our responsibility, because we are in the service industry. We have to make sure we're catering to to the users, to the clients that are coming to us. But at the same time, we're also part of this world that is battling climate change now. I think it's only foolish if we don't acknowledge it or do our bit towards it. So we still make sure we inform the client that we're choosing so and so material because of so and so reasons. Unless we're in a complete no-go zone, it mostly is due to cost. Client is not wanting to spend that kind of thing. I'm not saying being sustainable is expensive. It's actually not. But sometimes it can end up being more expensive than something.
Few items.
Few items can be that. Unless it's heavily driven by aspects like that, we don't ever stop ourselves from. But then there's also a sector of hotels where designing for need is a requirement. We also very happily design for need because we've done that for a long time.
And definitely, when they again, it's all about the experience to the their users. So definitely, they wanted to have that kind of luxury feelings to their clients and customers.
Yeah.
Maybe because of that, they are promoting those kind of materials or those kind of finishes. Or
it's possible. But I'll tell you another thing. I think what we also work on, depending on again the particular project, and this happens more often in hotels, is we always tell the clients that more than about choosing a material for this floor, this floor, this floor, it's about how we're going to use this material. I think wall coverings or wallpapers, for example, they are wall coverings. So you end up using them on walls. There's no reason why we can't use them on ceilings. We use them on ceilings for so many projects because we wanted that particular pattern, that particular texture, that particular vibe in that space. And for many reasons, it was not the most practical solution to get an artist to come and paint. It would be beautiful, but it was taking a wallpaper and starting on the ceiling. So I think it doesn't, in terms of materials and in terms of informing the client, I think as designers, our job doesn't end at saying, this is the material, this is where we put it, and this is what you get for your thoughts. I think our responsibility goes a little bit beyond in giving them that overall sort of that full circle experience to say, your budget is this great, we can work. And then we do our homework. These are the materials we can work with. But we use these materials in ways where it gives them that rich feel or that luxury feel without really burning their budgets. So it's just about smart designing that needs to come into picture.
So now we are coming on the very, very interesting topic, which is called the rapid fire.
Right, okay.
So you tell me, what's in India or Instagram fantasy? Okay, so we have few questions. You need to define that.
Okay.
Whether it works in India or it is only for the Instagram fantasy.
Right.
White marble floor.
Yeah.
Matte black bathroom fixtures.
Definitely Instagram. Yeah, I think so too. At least so far. From the kinds of products that I've seen in the Indian market,
okay. Otherwise, it is.
It's a technical spec.
Technical specification.
I've seen plenty of black fixtures in the West. Fantastic. But they're not available yet in India to the prices that.
Or maybe the water quality.
Could be water quality. So, which is why then the specs need to be modified to make sure you don't have water issues. So, at the moment, it is not working. What's available in India is not working in India.
So, exposed concrete walls?
It works in India. Fantastic. So many projects we've done. It's fantastic. Concrete floors, not so much. Adding to your question, but concrete walls.
Okay, that was my next.
Okay.
All wood kitchen?
No, it doesn't work in India. I don't. That's a no. Unless you're high up in the mountains, I can say don't do it. Don't do it at all. Not maintainable in India.
Open wooden shelves?
Works if you're ready to work for it. If you have opening, the windows are open, you've got dust coming in, you've got to clean them. Otherwise, you're not going to be happy with your windshields. You will end up putting glass enclosures. So keep them if you're ready to invest time into it.
Terracotta and modern homes.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's definitely works for India. I think many parts of India need to embrace terracotta because global warming is catching up in Bangalore as well. Our summers are it's already hot there. Our summers are very hot and we need to use these cooling. This is where material and climate comes in. We need to use these.
And that is very easily available.
Easily available, exactly. Easily available and not the most expensive that you have to ship it from bottom to square. Very versatile as well. Flow work, ceiling spirit, to spirit. Where do we want to live? I think India should be more of it.
Linear versus language.
Yeah, it's a battle that we have every day in our lives. I can tell you that. I think both of them. I mean, again, if you are educated and informed enough of materials, you understand the value in both of them. The value and the performance that veneer gives, laminates can never give. Of course, there are some really high performing laminates in the market, which I think is good and it's trying to catch up. But then again, there's maintenance issues that come into place. Veneers may not work in certain areas or spaces. Laminates can be very waterproof these days,
Sure.
into seven or waterproof spaces. So I think that would fall out to your smart designing, depends on where you're using it, how you're using it.
Possible.
But it can be both Instagram and India, relevant to both.
If you suggest to the budding architect how to select this material for any specific trend, so what is your opinion about that? What kind of the discussion you will be doing with your fellow members or your newcomers or new buddies, how you are going to use those, what will be the first case, what will be the last case?
So there's a certain process that we follow through it. I think again, like I mentioned, it when we're selecting a certain material for a project, right? We first need to understand what is the project about. It goes back to the philosophy that we're trying to. What is the project about? What are we trying to create in this space? Who are the people that will use this space? Pretty much, and climate, which is part of the context. And these pretty much will define what are the materials we have to put into that space. Again, sometimes if you're wanting to give, I'll take wood as an example. If you're wanting to give that woody feel in the space, veneer and laminate can, or solid wood can do the job. Then you boil it down to, is this the kind of space that should spend their money on solid wood? Because the other thing is, more often than not, our clients don't tell us their budgets. They always say, yeah, I don't know, you let us know what it is, right? That's the kind of clientele we get. Even really big clients say that. It's great for us to know that, yeah, they don't really have a budget concern. We can design to our fantasy. But we don't do that because it is still somebody's money. If we feel like that's an element that has to be a solid wood feature, we're 100% informed the client. Spend your money there, but don't spend your money here because
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of aspects that come down to selecting material. So when somebody that's new or they're excited to learn about what the new things are and I want to use this material in a really different, I want to have mirror on the floors.
Yeah.
There's always that
So sometimes they live in the fantasy,
Exactly. Look, for me, I think it's our responsibility as senior members in the industry to not cut short that fantasy. I think that's what drives a lot of creativity in our lives. As long as that works and fits into all of these other factors that we list down, go for it. You want the mirrors on the floor, you have glass before. Nothing stopping you from doing it. But as long as you tick those boxes, well, absolutely fine. Nothing should stop, actually. Fantasy should go on. That's what we live our lives on.
Wow. I don't want to stop this conversation because this is happening in a very beautiful way, and I'm sure the budding architect, or maybe whoever wants to start their architectural business, they wanted to start their studio also. They got enough information how to begin with it.
Right, hopefully. And I've had a wonderful time also chatting through. And I think, listen, it's not everybody that's come into the design field has come, if they've lasted that long to finish the course, they've really invested their passion in it, right? Because it is a demanding course. It's not an easy plug and play course where you finish 3 years, 4th year, you end up a really good paying job and you got fancy things to do in the office and your life set. It's not one fun industry. Hopefully it gets there soon enough. But if you've got that passion and drive, it's really not rocket science. It's really about carrying that forward in the same passion and the same direction that you've taken it. And enjoy your life.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Thanks, Sneha. It was really a great time with you, and we learned a lot. In fact, our viewers we also learned a lot.
So that was Sneha breaking down the reality of material choices beyond the Instagram aesthetics and what exactly works in Indian climatical conditions. If you are an architect tired of specifying material that look good in renders but fails in reality, hopefully gave you some framework to think differently. This is Design Stories. Next episode is in next 2 weeks. Want to be on guest? DM or comment guest. This is Altaf Abdul signing off. Thank you for watching.